What's up, y'all? Devon here again for Obligatory, showing up for you weekly every Friday with a music news and new music recap. Today is August 2nd, 2024, and today's top story is about Drake. That's honestly someone we don't cover a lot in this series, but there are some interesting rumors beginning to swirl about him dropping a new album. On the 31st of July, Ebro and Peter Rosenberg from Hot 97 exchanged rumors on what they've been hearing about Drake and potentially dropping some new music. The interesting thing about this clip is that each of the three people speaking sound like they've heard rumors from different places.
I think Drake is dropping a project at some point this year. That's the rumors.
That is the rumors.
Have you heard anything?
Too. No, I just heard that it's coming sooner than we think.
I also heard he has a whole project's worth of music done with Conductor Williams.
In the midst of this conversation, nobody actually says Drake and Conductor Williams are releasing an album together, because that's kind of how some of the news outlets are picking up and running this story. I think the rumor is Drake has a new album potentially coming soon, and also Drake has about an album's worth of music with this producer. They could be dropping an album together for all I know, but he could also just have several placements on the upcoming Drake album, which would make just as much sense. If you're familiar with the Griselda movement, then you know Conductor Williams was really one of the more prominent producers to arise from that scene, but that has elevated him into obviously working with Drake on a couple tracks. He produced 8 a.m. in Charlotte, which was the lead single for All the Dogs, and then he also had a placement on For All the Dogs' deluxe counterpart as well. We saw Conductor Williams and J. Cole in the studio together while J. Cole was on tour with Drake. Conductor Williams, of course, produced one of the two beats that ended up on 7 Minute Drills. Now, the only other interesting thing that I thought of in hearing this is that I recall last October Drake saying that he wanted to kind of take 2024 off. Obviously, he had been touring throughout a good portion of this year. As we know, a lot has changed from October till today, and what sort of the public vibe and temperature is around Drake and Drake's music. DJ Academics has been basically crying wolf about Drake releasing some new music for like months at this point. So I'm inclined to believe what we are hearing here. I also am taking note of the fact that October is just 2 months away now at this point. That is like Drake's month, so I could see him dropping right around then. Now, how is this also going to work with the rumored Kendrick Lamar album that is alleged to be coming sooner rather than later as well? We don't know. Would they be interested in dropping around the same time? Would they, want to give it some distance? I truly have no idea, but we have a lot to think about moving forward here. We'll definitely keep you posted on any little bit of news that comes our way. But I don't really want to get completely off the Kendrick Lamar and Drake saga since we are here. So another top story from this week, this is actually an older clip that's been circulating around the news now. Kendrick Lamar's engineer, Nicholas Day Parcell, spoke in an interview again earlier in July about the process behind releasing and mixing these Drake disses as they were coming along. He spoke about this in an interview with the Engineers Show, which, by the way, is a platform invested in by Kendrick Lamar and mixed by Ollie. And in this clip that's been circulating, he spoke on what was essentially a very exciting but high-pressure working environment in getting these Drake disses out as soon as they were coming in.
And that's what it was like. Like, I get the song, like 6 minutes would elapse, and they'd be like, how we looking? It was very high pressure, As Dot was releasing these records, it was like I was turning in the masters. It would drop like 12 minutes later.
This all kind of lines up with what we had been hearing about the process of him recording these in sort of a batch format and then going back and making tweaks and changes along the way so that he would have music to quickly respond to Drake and sort of snuff out the responses that Drake would be coming with. And then because we might as well stick with the theme here, I thought I should also mention Sir's concert in Toronto has been canceled. You might recall Schoolboy Q had his concert in Toronto canceled by the police. He alleged that there's an anti-TDE agenda going on in Drake's hometown. That is all the Kendrick Lamar and Drake and TDE related stuff that we have to talk about this week. I also wanted to mention that Pusha T has officially unveiled the title for the upcoming Clips album. So that was also a semi-recent news bit. Clips confirmed they have an album coming in 2025. And the title of this one is going to be Let God Sort 'Em Out. Well over a decade since they released an album, and they really only have 3 in their discography. And, recently, over the last several months, we've seen them doing more performances performances. We saw them also debut a song at Paris Fashion Week, and we will definitely keep you updated on this one. We're just getting little bits and pieces of information so far, but this is one I'm really excited about, and so everything else that we get, you'll hear from us. We got to mention Frank Ocean. We talked about him last week because Michael Uzo Ruru stated in an interview that the two of them have been working together pretty consistently over the years, and most recently they have been locked in working together on some music in Miami. Now that was, a nice encouraging thing to see that they've been making music, but I guess I also just wanted to say to people that I think Frank Ocean has been making music this whole time, and I tend to notice that fans think that like the album making process is very linear like that. Like you're making music now, it means you're working on the next thing that you're going to put out, and obviously that's not entirely true. That is not even remotely true. And just because he's not sharing what he's doing doesn't mean he's not doing anything. And just because he's sharing that he's making music doesn't mean that music is even alluding to a next project. Could be, but also don't assume that it is I guess my point. I don't know how much y'all care about Lil Yachty's Concrete Boys group, but shortly after the release of their debut album as a crew, It's Us Volume 1, which just released in April, we are already getting the official news of the departure of Caribou from this group. Now, she was the lone female of the crew, and she had the most name recognition of any of the people not named Lil Yachty in this group. Yachty confirmed as much via an Instagram live. He answered that question directly. Caribou just also hadn't really been around the group, even though they still are going around and doing things, so that's kind of where people started to ask questions. Next up, I just wanted to make quick mention of the 360 remix by Amine that just came out, so Charlie XCX and AG Cook's hit 360. I wanted to mention it because it's a cool little remix, but even more so because of the title that he threw on his YouTube video, 360.5. If you're an Amine fan, you already know that he set the precedent of 0.5 mixtapes after he does one of his studio albums. So we have 1.5 and 2.5 to this point, and we did just recently last year get his K-Tramine album. And so with all of that in mind, I suspect that maybe we get a 3.5 this year or in the near future. We also got a couple pretty legendary RIPs to send out there. One to DJ Polo, who is most widely regarded for his time spent as a duo alongside the legendary Kool G Rap, which obviously stamps his place in a pretty great portion of this massive history in this genre. And then Chino XL, a rapper hailing from the Bronx, also noted as sort of a New Jersey legend, with a legacy dating back to hip-hop's golden age. And to be truthful, he was always someone I knew of and never really knew anything about or listened to his music. The biggest thing I knew about him, again, as someone who wasn't alive in his heyday, was Tupac's mention of him in the Hit 'Em Up Biggie diss track. Moving on to the new releases from this week, the albums this week were pretty awesome. I think it would have been a really quiet one if JPEG Mafia and Navy Blue didn't announce their new projects like a week ago. EPs from the week, gotta mention Hotline TNT with some remixes from Somersault, and then Moses Sumney. Singles this week, the stuff that I am seeing the obligatory team most excited about is Porridge Radio, MJ Lenderman, Soccer Mommy, Muramasa, Jamie XX and the Avalanches, a new song from the upcoming Father John Misty Greatest Hits album that was just announced, Fouché, and more. Albums announced next week, we got Larry June, Soccer Mommy, and Polo G announcing new albums, as well as Kali Uchis announcing a Parte Dos to Orquídea, so sort of a deluxe to her album she dropped at the beginning of this year. And then just because this one is really throwing me for a loop, Lin-Manuel Miranda is making a new album that is executive produced by Nas that is based loosely on the movie The Warriors. If you've ever seen the 1973 movie The Warriors, kind of a cult classic film based in New York about New York gangs at the time, it's actually one of my favorite movies, one of the movies I've seen the most in my lifetime. I've also played the PS2 Rockstar video game, very good. If you haven't played that, I don't know. Don't really get it, but I had to mention that. Albums next week. Super excited for a lot of these. Raven Lenae, Mavi, King Gizzard, Ray Khalil, Larry June, Kali Uchis, Polo G, Big Sean, and more and more. Albums the rest of August, Bia Badoobie, Fontaines DC, Spirit of the Beehive, Magdalena Bay, Ty Segall, and more. Albums the rest of the year, Toro y Moi, Dummy, MJ Lenderman, Floating Points, Fouché, Julie, Jamie XX, Sophie, and more, of course. Now, if you like that we keep you up on the week-to-week new releases and new album announcements, I definitely recommend checking out our Instagram page at Obligatory or going to obligatory.com/features, where you can find a Friday weekly recap of new releases to check out that are direct recommendations from the Obligatory team. As you can see, we have little blurbs and corresponding music videos with a lot of these, so I will always be bringing you this quick new music recap, but if you want a little bit of a deeper dive, then that should be where you go. So, as always, I'll be back next week with more news, and I can't wait to see y'all again next week, all right? Peace out. Till then.